I guess we'll have to do this whole thing again because now I've just now hit record. All right, we'll start from here on the recording, but I will have the results of all of this kind of survey here because I just think it's interesting to understand what the rest of Houston's doing with MuleSoft. So and the MuleSoft platform and everything. So very cool. Let me switch back over to my meetup in just a second. All right. Okay. So Studio 7. Let me stop sharing my screen. And Mike, you have presenter mode, so you should be able to share.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I can see the share button, and let's see, just started the share. So I started the share. Let me know you can see a screen that says October 2020 release. Yes. Okay, everybody, all set. Okay, good. Okay. Again, my name is Mike Saleme, Principal Solutions Engineer here at MuleSoft, and I wanted to take some time today to sort of walk you through what's new and show you what is recently new with Studio 7.7. And so our product teams will do a point release on occasion. The most recent cadence has been about every quarter. So this 7.7 was made available on October 30th of 2020. So it's called the October release. And there was a 7.6 that was made available in June. And so that's kind of the cadence that you can expect some sort of release around new capability. So I wanted to walk you through what's new with it today at this time. All right, so let's see. Just a quick high-level view of what's in it. We've made some improvements to the way data weave works and shows data that's part of the transformation, right? So I'm going to show you how this view here that shows what the input payload looks like, what the output payload looks like in structure. You can see here there's data showing up here in the preview panes beyond just the preview itself. All right, so we'll look at that, and I have the side-by-side. We'll look at that in a bit. And then also we've made some advancements where you can create your API specifications directly within Studio. So no need to be on the web console or the designer. You can stay in Studio and create an API specification. So I'm going to show you how that's done. It's got a lot of really good integrated capabilities where the APIs, you can run the mockup service. You can then share them out to Exchange as well. So there's a lot of built-in capabilities we'll look through with that. There's also this here, if you're a GovCloud user, GovCloud is a special FedRAMP certified edition of Cloud Hub. You can now connect Studio directly to GovCloud and publish out there directly. So this is new too. So that's what's available now that we're going to look through. Okay, so now we're just going to look at each of these one by one. All right, so the first one that I mentioned around how the data weave experience has changed. This is what the 7.6 data weave experience looked like, right? You'd have your inbound part of the transformation, the output part of the transformation. This is where you'd create your data weave script, and this would be your preview. This is how it looked in 7.6 and before. And so we know that you can specify a sample payload for inbound, and you can see that output on the preview. So what we've built out is we'll show you what the inbound data sample payload looks like in that same view, right? So you can see it here without having to flip back and forth. And so then the outbound as well, like the preview, will then show this object view that's a little cleaner and easier to read. So if we're serializing, we're outputting it out a Java object, then we can see here in this more clean, streamlined view what the sample data looks like and then what the data types are for that. So this is an improvement. I'm going to walk you through in Studio what that looks like. And this is the first of 3 parts that I want to show you. All right, so if there are any questions here, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to take a look at Studio 7.6. Okay. All right, so here I have a Studio open, and this is already opened, and I've got this flow, this real simple flow, and I've got a transform just sitting right here on the flow. And so if you're familiar with these transforms, right, this is where I can see the input object, right, and the output object, and then I can map what data fields map out, and I can see my preview. So here all I did was I just set a metadata type, right, of an order, right? An order was an XML object, and then I specified my metadata. So this is an example that was provided, and then I specified the metadata for that by set metadata, and I'm going to show you where that's set. So if here, set metadata, the set metadata, and then the example payload was both set, and I have some sample data. The sample data is just an XML object itself, and so having both of those set automatically builds out this view. So it's the same steps that you would have done before. It's just now we're showing you the data sample in the same view of this context view. All right, and then the same thing on the outbound side. So now if I map this to this email field here, and then I've got this output as a Java, if I click on the preview, then it now shows that same data here on this right-hand side, okay? So it's really that simple. There's no separate actions that you need to take to get this view. This is automatically built out for you. So if I then map out this postal code here, make sure this is a Java object here, and then okay, then it'll actually redraw it. And so I've got the second one here that's a backup that does the same thing. So again, I've got some book data with book XML data set in the sample payload. It's rendering into this object here. If I press preview, then you'll be able to see that this preview is running, and then we're going to actually see the cleaner view of the preview with the sample data in a single view. All right, and so that's really just the beginning of some of the improvements that we have planned for the data weave. This data weave builder. Expect some more advanced capabilities, such as like if I right click here a certain element, expect some advanced capabilities to start showing up here on this context view. We're going to add some ability to be able to very easily add any of our functions or any of our methods that you want to apply, maybe a trim or your own function editor around, or your own function applied to that data type or that element right there. We're going to make it easier to do that. But that's the essence of what we've got here with this. Or any questions about what we're looking at here? Okay. All right. Well, very good. Okay. So on to what's next with Studio 7.7. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so next what we have is here, we've got the ability to create a API specification directly from within Studio, right? So you'll authenticate into MuleSoft to your Anypoint Cloud platform, and then from here, you'll pick the business group and enter a project name, and then you'll choose what type that you're creating, what type of project that you're creating. If it's an API specification, you'll be able to create a RAML specification, an OAS specification, and that's that walkthrough there. So let me switch over to Studio and show how that works. All right, so I'm going to start up a new project. So select API specification project. And my API specification project, I've already authenticated into my Cloud Hub environment. So I'm going to just put it there in the root org. And you can see here I can create a RAML 1 specification or an OAS specification 2 or 3 and multiple types. and then I just need to give it a name. So I'm going to give this a name, Meetup 9. Okay, so demo API. I'm going to create a RAML API. I'm going to select finish, and then it's going to scaffold out my project and build the right facets for the project. So that's going on in the background. Gets everything set up, and it's going to switch perspectives into an API design perspective. So I'm going to say yes. And this is what the API design perspective looks like, right? So here's where I can begin to create my RAML specification for my API the same way that I would if I was building it in Designer. So if I want to have a root element called customers, and then maybe have a get post, right? And you can see while I'm creating this, you can see it's syntax matters. And you can see while I'm typing this out, you see over here on this right-hand side, I can see the API console. So I can see this build out while I'm typing, right? And so if I want to add some more elements in this, let me just paste in what this response will have. All right, so that's done. All right, so now I have a get that returns a 200 JSON thanks. Okay, so if I select it there, then that's what we see here now. So just the way you would in Designer, if you were designing it with the design console within the browser tool, you get that same experience here. And so if I wanted to build out my post method, of course, I could build that out too, very similarly. We know that that matters. Okay. The indentation right. There we go. Okay. So that's done. Now, after I've got this built here, obviously this is a studio environment, and you can see that this needs to be saved. So I save that, and then we've integrated the editor here with the design environment, and the way that it's saved is by checking it in. Okay, so through the Git plugin, and so this knows that I've got some unstaged changes. Then I just queue those stage changes. And then I just put a commit message, right? And then I commit and push. And so what that is doing here is that is synchronizing those changes into the into the Cloud Hub design itself. So you'll see that now pushed out. Close that. All right, and that's done. So those changes have been pushed out. So now if I switch over to a browser, you'll see how that shows up in my design environment. All right, so this is my design center. And you see that the demo API we just built now is shown here. And this shows up here with that commit push that I did there at the last step. Okay, so that's fully integrated. Now, the last thing that I want to show you with this part is how we can run the mocking service here as well. So if you'll look here, I can right-click this, and I can see I have this new option for Manage API Specification. And so from Manage API Specification, I have an option to turn on the mocking service. So I can enable that. That turns on the mocking service. Takes just a few seconds. You'll notice now that this link here for try it shows up with this link to the mocking service enabled, and then I can test it out and get an okay response, right? And so if I wanted to test out other parts of it, it's pretty simple. So get customer, okay, try it, send, and I get the message, thanks. Okay, so fully integrated design experience for RAML, also for OAS Swagger 2, 3, and multiple formats. Okay, and then the last thing you may want to do is from here, publish it to Exchange. So you may have noticed that previously under Manage API Specification, I can choose Publish to Exchange. Here, it's going to prompt for the same things that you'd expect. A version number, an API version number, and then I can publish it out to Exchange. And then that goes and publishes out there just like it would if you were designing and publishing it from the web console. All right. Okay, so that's a quick walkthrough of the second thing that I wanted to show you is how you can now create your APIs with Studio, directly in Studio. All right, so the last part I want to show you is something that was added in, and you may have already seen it, and I just wanted to bring this up so that we can hear your thoughts about it, as well as let you know that it's there. Let's let that finish. Okay, so this last part is we've added onto the welcome page an area that prompts for your feedback. And so it's new. Our product teams look at this, and our product teams really want to know what you think about different parts of the platform. So next time that you open Studio and you see this welcome page, the same welcome page that you see every time you open Studio for the first time with an empty workspace, instead of just dismissing it, scroll down and just add your comments to it. Our product team is looking at those comments. It's something that they ask that we let our customers know about it so that you can provide any insights that you have. So we're going to see the welcome site here. Where is it? May have to create an empty workspace for it to pop up. Let me just create a new workspace. Okay, there it is. Okay, so this is the welcome screen that you'll see the first time that you open Studio with a blank workspace. So this goes over how you can create an API specification. This goes over the data weave editor improvements we looked at. And the last thing is this feedback form. And so they'll ask, what do you think about Anypoint Platform? Would you recommend that to a friend or a colleague? And the next question is, what could we do to improve? So any comments that you have that you want to share, our product teams are looking at this. They look at it closely, and this goes directly to them. So next time you open up Studio and you see this, take a moment and scroll down and then provide any feedback that or thoughts that you have. That would be really helpful. Okay, that's the last thing that I wanted to show that was changed or added with 7.7. Okay, everyone, any questions or comments?
Yeah, that looks pretty great, Mike. The data weave is starting to kind of remind me of the data weave playground, which has been out there for quite a while. I did a presentation on that a few meetups ago, and it's nice. I mean, that's one of the things that I think really helps is having a strong development platform like this.
Yeah, there's a lot of built-in advancements that we're going to add to the data weave editor, right, that you should see in the next drop. That'll probably be another few months. So obviously that's subject to change and timelines. However, look for continued improvements there.
All right, fantastic.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mike. If you guys think of some questions as we go, definitely feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them and answer them. All right. Okay, so our next speaker is David Berlind. He's going to be explaining the benefits of APIs in a way that even your grandmother can understand. David, I met David a couple of years ago at MuleSoft Connect in San Jose. We were both on the front row for the keynote speech that was delivered by Sir Tim Berners-Lee. And the funny thing is, I don't remember a whole lot about what Sir Tim Berners-Lee said. I know that he's a very smart person and he had a lot of really interesting stuff, but I do remember that I spoke afterwards with David about our passion for guitars. And I knew I'd met a kindred spirit. And David is just the nicest guy. He has interviewed and written about many of the leaders in the API economy. He's editor-in-chief of the Programmable Web, which carries hundreds of API news articles. It's got a directory of almost 24,000 APIs that you can search. It also hosts the API University, which has a curriculum of best practices, tips, and tutorials. So look, the reality is there's so much great information out there. You really just don't have an excuse for not knowing some of this stuff. There's just a lot of really good material out there. And David has joined us from Boston remotely. So David, welcome to Houston, albeit virtually. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say for us tonight. One last thing about David before I kick the screen share back over to him. The founder of MuleSoft, Ross Mason, he's just he wrote a book several years ago called Undisturbed Rest. And if you haven't read it, it's a great book. It's good, really, really good read. I would highly recommend it. But he has recently released a new book. David, I forget the title, but David has written one of the chapters in this book. So highly recommend going out there and picking that book up. They're free. That's one of the things Ross does, is he makes these resources available to us for free, and it's a good book to read. Definitely highly recommend it. David, I turn this over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can put your goodness up there.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thanks everybody for having me today. What a great job Jim's doing on this meetup, by the way. So a little bit of a round of applause for a terrific job. These meetups are not easy to organize, and especially under these very trying circumstances. It's great not only to see that these meetups are continuing to take place. I happen to be one of the co-organizers of the API meetup in Washington, D.C. It's the government API meetup where all the API practitioners from the different federal agencies get together to talk about their best practices. And I work very closely with Gray Brooks, who's in the GSA, and together he and I team up on that. We haven't actually had a physical or a virtual meetup since the very beginning of the year, before the pandemic started. So it's great to see folks like Jim taking the bull by the horns here and making sure that some of these meetups continue even through this difficult period. So thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody for attending. Those of you who are coming from different parts of the world and might be here at hours that are not friendly hours to your normal schedule. So when Jim came to me, he said, "Hey, Dave, would you please speak at our meetup?" I was like, "Oh boy, since the last time we've spoken, I really don't have a new talk track. I don't have anything I'm really talking about these days." And he says, "Well, give it some thought and let me know what you think." And at that very moment, I've been preparing for somebody else at MuleSoft. I've been preparing like a little document on great metaphors that CIOs and other IT executives could use to help other people around the organization better understand what APIs are and how they work and what their benefits are. And so I thought, all right, well, as long as I'm preparing this document, maybe I could turn it into a bit of a slide deck, and we'll call it describing APIs to your parents. I'll share my screen here. I noticed I know that I told Jim grandparents, but then I thought I better be careful here because some of us don't have grandparents anymore, and that might not be. And all of us have tried to explain at one point or another to our parents what we do, and all of us have probably at one point or another failed miserably at that explanation. So I call the presentation "Describing APIs to Your Parents," but as you all know, it would be a lot easier if you just took another job and explained that to them as opposed to trying to explain APIs. And this is really about how to talk to other people in your organization about APIs. So let's see if I can get the scroll going here. There we go. So I'm a real visual person. Like you'll notice that this slide deck, Jim's seen this too, like in the presentations that he's seen me give. I'm very visual. I don't have a lot of wordy slides. I'm not into those big kind of word charts. I like very visual things. And I just thought I would share that this to me was very visual. This is the best visual thing I've seen in the last few days. And I wish I was as good as this cartoonist with their economy of words, right? Like this is in one frame. This visually communicates pretty much everything you need to know about this week. And I thought this is just absolutely brilliant. Gosh, I wish I had this kind of talent to kind of think in these terms. I will do my best though to kind of have similar economy of words in my presentation. There are a couple slides with words on them, but not too many. So I'm in this constantly never-ending quest to find the best metaphors for how to explain APIs. Just when I think I've got it nailed, I see something else and I go, wait a minute, that's a better way to explain it than the way I have been explaining it. But at the end of the day, what I always tell people is, and it's funny because the folks at Gartner actually embraced this description as well. They loved it, which was an API is just it's an alternative to a user interface. We all are used to using our smartphones, and there's a user interface on them. And this user interface, by the way, that's Duolingo there. I'm learning languages on Duolingo. We use this user interface to interface with the device and get information out of it, get functionality out of it. That's a user interface. But just the same way that I am talking to some service on the back end through my user experience, there is also a need for computers to talk to those same services, other software talking to software. So when I talk to people about what an API is, I say, hey, look, this is just an alternative to a user interface. It's just designed for a different user. And that user is a computer instead, talking to another computer. And so in helping them to understand this, I remind people that, there's a contract. It's, we think about the person who's accessing the information, or the person who's going through the interface, and that's the consumer, and whatever's coming back through that user interface or that interface is being given to you by the provider. And so usually a software application is the consumer of the API, not always. And when it's offered over a network, when the API is offered over a network, that is, because there are other APIs, for example, APIs that are in computers and systems like that. But when it's coming from across a network, the service that's delivering that API capability is usually referred to as the provider. So it's pretty straightforward, consumers and providers. And most conversations that I have, I try to reduce it to this idea of consumers and providers, consuming users and maybe consuming developers, consuming and then providers of the capability. So, an application may outsource its requirements. I try to use a lot of examples that we're familiar with. Some of you have used patient portals and seen how that retrieves a patient record. Google Maps is one of those things that an application can outsource its mapping needs to, and you can see some location represented as a pin on the map, execution of a financial transaction. Most of this is, everybody here knows these things, but it's a technical contract. And so when I think about how do I visually represent these technical contracts, or what's the metaphor, that's really what I'm getting at, is what's the metaphor for the contract itself? How do you explain that so that the consumer, there's a contract that exists between the consumer and the provider, and that contract is sacrosanct. If it changes, it could break the relationship between the consumer and the provider. And it's like a legal understanding, right? Like if you had a legal contract with somebody, that legal contract, regardless of which side you're on, demands a certain exchange of value, a certain performance on behalf of either party. And the contract that exists between the consumer and the provider in an API context is really no different. So some of the analogies that I've used are here, and I'm going to go through them. But then I'm going to tell you about one that I came across just recently that I like a lot better. Some of you are familiar with wall socket for electricity. It's different in different parts of the world, but this is the one that you see in North America. And let's go take a look at that. You'll notice that there's a pattern here. One of the vertical slots is bigger than the other one. One of them is sort of like a semicircle. Then there's a shorter slot. These are all part of the contract. You can't change these. If you change them, then things will start to break. And other parts of the contract are, in North America, you get 120 volts out of this socket. The amperage is somewhere between 15 and 20 amps. The current that comes in and out of the socket is alternating, as opposed to direct current. And you can see here I've specified some of the other. I've talked about some of the other parts of the contract here. What's most important here is that this is the interface. This is where the contract lives. If you plug something into it, the consumer, let's say it's a toaster, let's say it's a computer, it has an expectation it's going to get all of these things. Just like we said, the expectation of a contract is this is going to be performance on behalf of both parties. Well, the consumer has an expectation it's going to get 120 volts. It's going to be alternating current. That the hot wire is going to be the short wire, and so on and so forth. And likewise, on the other side, the provider is on the hook to provide that capability and has an expectation that the consumers won't expect anything different than that. And one of the things that this does is it creates this separation of church and state, this what we call decoupling of the consumer from the provider. And what that really makes possible is like if you're the provider of electricity, you can change whatever it is that provides, whatever it is that's providing the electricity to this socket, as long as the contract doesn't change. So you want to provide that electricity with nuclear, go right ahead. You want to provide it with wind or solar, you can do that too, or with coal. Point being is you can make that change. And so this provides that great flexibility that people look for out of APIs. Because you can imagine if you're running a utility, an electric utility, and you want to convert, you want to move from coal burning plants to something more sustainable like wind or solar, as long as you keep this contract steady and your consumers are not disrupted, they could care less what you're providing that with. So it gives you the flexibility to make those changes as long as you never violate the contract. Lego's pretty much the same way. I don't know if most people know, but they have names for this. The thing on top is called a stub, and the thing on the bottom is called a tube. And there are very, very specific dimensions to the tubes and the stubs that make it possible for Lego to sort of snap together in an interchangeable way. We've all used Lego and we all know what that's about. And if you're like me, I'm a parent, I have 3 kids, we have tons of Lego in the basement, but every now and then somehow something other than a Lego piece, something made by somebody else, finds its way into your Lego bin and it doesn't quite fit right. Well, that's a violation of the contract. And some of you, if you're parents, you've been through this process before, you get one of these things and then you realize that even Lego is starting to kind of move away from the contract because the pieces that are inside, whereas most Lego pieces are very interchangeable, the pieces inside of this box can only make this airplane and nothing else, right? I mean, you can try to mix and match them with other things, but you get a piece like this and you realize it's not of a whole lot of use in anything but that airplane. So that's an example of where the contract gets broken. This guy, I don't know if anybody recognizes him, but his name's Malcolm McLean, and he is considered by many to be the father of modern day logistics. And he's the one who came up with the design of the intermodal shipping container. And if I take you back in time, and you think about way back when you had thousands of longshoremen working on the docks, the way stuff got shipped was people would pack a truck, wherever they were manufacturing something, they would just pack a truck full of stuff, and then they would drive that to the docks. The longshoremen would have to unpack the truck and pack that onto something else, put that on the ship. Then the ship would go somewhere, and then wherever it went, there were more longshoremen who had to unpack it and then put it into something else, and then it would be driven to its destination where that had to be unpacked as well. A lot of inefficiency there. What he came up with was this idea that why don't we have a container that you pack once and it can attach and detach to anything that's in between the source and the destination. So here's an example of what they call the Twistlock. And these Twistlocks can be found on the corners of shipping containers. We've all seen shipping containers. And what that means is that the shipping containers can be connected to each other. They can be, and you've seen them stacked on freight ships and stuff like that. They can be connected to a rail car. They can be connected to we have a connection. It takes the inefficiency out of the shipping, the whole end-to-end chain of shipping and logistics, because now what happens is at the source where something's being manufactured, you pack a container, you put it on the back of a truck, the truck takes it to the docks, a crane lifts that same container, just sticks it on the ship, and then you have the process in reverse wherever the ship goes. So you can imagine there's a contract here. The Twistlock has very specific contracts so that this all works. And here's some of the examples of that contract. So, like I said, I'm always on the lookout for better metaphors. And my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, has a passion for tiny houses. It's what she wants to do when she grows up. She wants to be an architect and design tiny houses. And if you ever looked at any of these things on like YouTube, you'd be like, wow, this is kind of cool. It's a pretty Spartan way of living. It's very minimal. And there's something attractive about it. So I can see why it is that she's drawn to it. And this here is this is one of her designs, where she's taking a school bus and she's completely redesigning it to be a tiny house. So this is literally something that she drew, and so I started taking interest in this myself, and the way Google works is that once you type in a search like tiny house, then from that point forward, you're going to get bombarded by their suggestion engine with links to videos of tiny houses. And so I'm looking at YouTube and I see this thing that says you can build a house in 48 minutes, and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, as soon as I saw that, I said, I thought, okay, a lot of times we talk about the agility that you get with APIs. This could be kind of cool. This could be a little bit of a metaphor here. So I click into this video, and it's about this company called Boxable, Boxabl, and I watched this video, and then I watched a couple more videos about the company, and they're talking about how you can literally build a house in 2 hours. And I thought, that's extraordinary. 2 hours, you build a house in 2 hours. That's the same kind of agility we talk about with APIs. Like, you can stand up an API. We just saw a demonstration, right, of how you can sort of stand up an API, get it all mocked up, even start interfacing with it in the course of this meetup, right? Like that's pretty crazy. Like, well, so this is really interesting to me. I thought maybe this is a good metaphor for how you explain to people who are not technically inclined the benefits of an API. So it's a cool site. You can go check it out, boxable.com, Boxabl. I went and looked at the site, and I was like, okay, this thing's kind of for real. And the first thing I saw in one of these videos was, here's the thing on the left before it's assembled, and there's the thing on the right an hour later, and voila, you have a house. And I was like, wow, so that really speaks to this agility that I was just referring to, this ability to kind of go, you've got some kind of standard thing. It's already kind of pre-built, and just like an API is, it's like a standard part that can be reused in your network, and in very short matter of time, you can be consuming that part, using that part, and have an application up and running on it. So you get this agility. There's also this opportunity for disruption. I'm sure modular houses are nothing new. We've seen these, we see them all the time, right? But you've probably seen something like this. This is like this giant truck with a trailer with a big modular part or a whole modular house on the on the back, and it's going down the road. It can't make turns very easily. It's kind of like, it's almost like a custom thing. It's sort of a metaphor for custom software, which is the enemy of APIs. And also, whenever you see one of these things going down the road, it's got a whole entourage of other vehicles around it, with lights flashing and warnings, and it's crossing over into other lanes, and everybody has to get out of its way. It's a hot mess if you really think about it. This is a sort of really good example of something that's ripe for disruption. Why does it have to be that way? You can just the expense of moving one of these things, all these people and cars and taking up the roadways. You probably have to notify the local authorities that you're coming through with this, and get a police escort in some municipalities, that kind of thing. There's a lot to think about there. Well, in their case, they said, let's get it onto a normal trailer. Let's not take up an extra wide lane. Let's make it so that we can use existing standards, right? And that's kind of what an API does. If you think about the RESTful APIs that most of us are using, what makes them RESTful is that the API is relying on a standard to move the payload of information from one place to the other. That standard happens to be HTTP, the protocol of the World Wide Web. And so what these guys did at Boxable is they said, look, let's work with the standards. A lane on a road is only so wide. A lane on a road in North America is only so wide. So let's make sure that this fits on that road and works with that road. And that way, we can use standard trucks and standard trailers, and we don't have to get a police escort. We don't have to get extra people, to surround the vehicle and keep an accident from happening. And oh, by the way, we probably have an easier time because we can fit in the lane, turning corners and getting around the roads of the country. So it's trafficked over a standard network. Great metaphor for why APIs are so beneficial, because they rely on existing standards for moving payloads around. And then there's the cost. I just talked a little bit about the cost, just the cost alone of moving the payload and the fewer resources that you need. But once this thing is on site, you literally just sort of unfold it and swing some walls into place. They're all on hinges and stuff like that. And so, if you watch the videos, the founder compares these houses to what he calls stick-built homes. Stick-built home, you probably know what that is. You've probably seen one under construction. If you pass a development somewhere where a bunch of homes are being built, you see a bunch of 2x4s, or you see a lot of lumber being used to frame the house up. That's a stick-built home. Well, you don't have any of that here. There's no customization, of that custom design in place, on location in the lot. It doesn't take. If you look at those houses, sometimes they take 6 months to a year to build. This one takes just a few hours to build. So you can imagine the cost differential is huge. Somebody shows up, you need a forklift or something like that to help unfold the thing, but it only takes a few people and you're done. That's pretty extraordinary. So you can imagine the amount of money that's saved by this. And by the way, these houses in US dollars cost $50,000. $50,000. Their modularity and reusability is extraordinary, because you could buy one and just make that your house, or you can buy multiple ones and snap them together like Lego to make something else, to make a house of your own design. And just like the Twistlocks on the shipping containers, they're designed to snap together like this if that's what you want to do. So it's pretty extraordinary. And even part of the modularity, part of their design, is the fact that there's one part of this foldable, when it folds up, there's one part of it that's not just a wall. It's a little bit thicker, and that's the kitchen. That's the part that holds all the appliances and stuff. The appliances are already in the house. So, this gets to that kind of modularity and how it goes together. But that modularity and reusability is a key benefit of APIs. You've broken some piece of software down into smaller functions, and those functions can be reused on the network. And that reusability is what helps democratize innovation. When, for example, you can put a pin on a map in an application, and 50 people in your organization discover that you're able to do that. Suddenly you have 50 new applications that are putting pins on maps, and they're all different applications that support whatever the organization does. Well, here you have the same sort of thing. You have this modularity, and you have this sort of reusability. In the videos, and I'll give you the addresses to the videos when we're over. I made some short URLs for them, but they talk about how they can bring these houses to a place where there's been a natural disaster to provide temporary housing for people who have suffered, a loss of their home in that natural disaster. But once the dust settles and things are better and the home's rebuilt, they can pack the home up and they can take it somewhere else and use it somewhere else where there's a natural disaster. Or maybe they pack it up and they take it to the lot where the person had their original home, and the person buys the house and they put it there. Whatever it is, they're reusable. So this really conveys that kind of reusability, that benefit of reusability you get from APIs. When you use a platform, an API lifecycle management platform like MuleSoft, one of the things that's sort of built into the APIs that you're building is security. They just inherit a whole bunch of security aspects that you might not otherwise get if you try to stand up an API yourself by hand, using Node.js and Express and all that. You just kind of craft the thing by hand, make it custom. What they did when they designed these homes is they said, hey, look, we're going to build some things into them that make them inherently secure. every one of these, the roof meets certain standards to survive hurricanes in the southeastern United States, and to survive earthquakes on the West Coast. All the materials are made in a flame retardant way because they've been thinking about all the wildfires that have been happening all over the place. So, you get this building that is by its very nature designed to protect you from harm, provide you with some security. And the same is true with APIs. When you're using an API management system to stand them up, they automatically inherit a whole bunch of security that you wouldn't otherwise have. And that security ladders up to the applications that use those APIs. You've probably heard about this benefit, but it's a far better way to secure your application infrastructure if you have a layer of APIs around it, as opposed to just the applications themselves, which are infinitely hackable once a hacker gets behind the network. APIs basically make that job a lot more difficult for hackers because it's kind of like another metaphor I use is they're like the turnstiles inside a stadium. Like, you go through one turnstile to get into the stadium. That's like getting onto the corporate network, but you still have to go through another turnstile to get into like certain parts of the stadium, the fancy schmancy parts and all that. And so there's security checks at every step of the way. And you get that with APIs when you're standing those APIs up with an API management system. One of the two videos is by this young lady here who's who's pushing the wall, and she said it's easier than IKEA. I hope everybody here is familiar with IKEA. I would argue that IKEA is not that easy. There are people who've called me up and said, hey, can you help? Like, it's so difficult that there are people who do nothing but help other people assemble IKEA purchased furniture. But she said it's easier than IKEA. It's not a very high bar, but okay, I get it. What she's implying is that like she can do it, right? And here's a picture of her literally swinging a wall into place. It's a screenshot. If you watch the videos, you'll see her actually pushing the wall. That's the founder right behind her. And the point here is that ordinary citizens can do the work. And one of the things that you'll start to see more about, particularly from MuleSoft. In fact, there's some blog posts now. If you search the MuleSoft, use Google to search the MuleSoft site for the word citizen, and you'll start to see some articles about things like robotic process automation, and in the idea of enabling citizens to do what IT people normally had to do. And if you think about that, that's a really important concept. There's a saying that a lot of people have, you probably heard, which is give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for life, right? And so the idea here is that if we think about what's going on right now, Jim had those questions he was putting up on Menti about how the pandemic's affected you. And one of the things we know, one of the things is really clear that the pandemic has very much revealed for a lot of organizations is that there are a whole bunch of things going on in the world, in the markets that you serve, that are beyond your control. And this idea of agility is incredibly important when things suddenly can happen. Market conditions can shift and change beyond your control. All sorts of things can happen. Pandemics, natural disasters, government regulations. Some disruptive startup just shows up in your industry and tries to turn the whole industry on its ear. We've seen this over and over and over again. And the most important thing is that organizations have to be able to respond to that, have to be able to innovate. But the innovation can't, and the work can't come from just a handful of people in the IT department or in the corner office, the executives of the company, the CEO, the CXO, the COO, right? The whole organization, innovation in the company has to be democratized. You have to let the people across the company participate in that role. They're the ones who are on the front lines with your customers. They're the ones who see the inefficiencies and the opportunities to optimize. They're the ones who might see a way to take some new technology that showed up in the market and apply it in a way that is a game changer for your organization. You have to enable them to be the innovators in your organizations, to take their imaginations and put them to work in a way that will move your organization forward and be the leader in the industry. Well, that's what's happening here. They're enabling ordinary people to build a house. I could never build a house, but I certainly can push that wall. I can push that wall into place. And that's part of the metaphor here is that they're enabling ordinary people to build a house. And the question is for your organizations, how are you enabling the ordinary people, the non-IT people, the non-developers to build your house? So I encourage you to watch the videos. I don't know the company. I don't have a share. I'm not an investor in the company or anything like that. All I have seen is the videos. I'm just somebody who's interested in tiny houses because my daughter loves them. I made up these. I set up these short URLs that you can use to go watch the same videos that I stumbled across. Watch them for yourself and try to spot those same metaphors. Maybe look for other ones that I overlooked. But if nothing else, the videos are fun to watch, and we'll teach you something about a domain that you might not otherwise have any knowledge about, and just raise your interest in that. But you might see what I saw, which was, yes, another way to describe APIs. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for that, David. That's fantastic. Boy, that's a great way to look at something a little differently, right? And metaphors are just, that's perfect for that, right? That's why we look for stories that that tell us how to think about something maybe a little differently. And I've seen the Legos. We've probably all talked about the Legos before, but frankly, I had not ever seen a specification of a Lego brick. That's pretty cool. So I have everyone, I think, marked as a presenter. So you should be able to turn your microphone on. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to open it up. I guess I'll kick it off just by asking David, like when you go in and you think you see a new a new idea that pops up on your screen, either through the Google algorithm or whatever. Like what steps do you go through to think about how to apply that? Like there's we know that there are these aspects of API that you just kind of walked us through, security and ease of use. Do you have those kind of in mind, and you try to just apply it over the top of that, or do you come at it a different way?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think so just to be in the spirit of disclosure, in 2013, MuleSoft saw some value in programmable web and acquired it. So I've been a part of MuleSoft for a long time, but I get to run programmable web at arm's length. I'm not like I'm not a spokesperson for the company. But one thing they sort of discovered in me as an editor-in-chief was I could write. I had the ability to communicate. And so about technology. And so over the years, some of the white papers and stuff that you see coming out of MuleSoft are actually written by me. They're written or edited by me. At the very least, if they're edited by me, it means I found somebody else to write it and then I edited it. So it was my, I'm the one who brought that white paper to life. And so in the course of writing these white papers, and the ones I write don't promote product. They promote how to think about things. It's like how to think about API strategy. Now they have one of the white papers is a 50-page white paper on how to think about your API strategy. It's called API Strategy Essentials. I don't talk about products really in there at all. I talk about how to think about your strategy. And so, over the years, as you're in it every day writing about this stuff, you're just constantly like all of the benefits of APIs are very fresh in your mind. I'm ready at any moment. At any moment, the phone can ring and somebody can say, "Tell me about the benefits of APIs," and I can rattle them all. I can rattle them all off to you, and off the top of my head. I live, eat, and breathe this as the editor-in-chief of Programmable Web. I'm always when you're in the media, you're bombarded by press releases, announcements coming from other companies, other vendors who want you to write about them. There are people who are PR. You've heard about these people. They're PR people. Their job, they're measured on how many articles they can get, websites to write about their clients. And so we're constantly being bombarded with information about products and things like and new entrants into the API economy. And I'm constantly digging into those and just reading through them and trying to frame what they've done in the context of all the work I'm doing on a daily basis. So I think it's pretty much what you said. It's just like you come across something new and I've got the API colored glasses on as I'm watching that or reading that, thinking, okay, how does this map to the benefits, or, what are the gotchas? And, I'm always looking for, what did they miss on this thing? It's pretty much that way. And in the case of MuleSoft, in some cases, if I see something that's interesting that comes my way, I forward it to the right people, and I say, hey, this looks kind of interesting. Do you guys have anything like this in the works? So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome, David. So thank you, Adrian Chia. You dropped in the name of the book. It's First Break IT.
Right.
That's the name of the new Ross Mason book that David has chapter 4, I think it is, in there.
Yeah. So the chapter that's in there is based on one of the white papers that I wrote, which is on how to set up an API ecosystem. So there's a separate white paper that's all about building out your API ecosystem. You can search Programmable Web for that, and then they used like a edited version of that paper as one of the chapters in Ross's book.
Awesome. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions for David while we've got him here?
I also point out that we just wrote another great white paper, which is back in 2013. The founder of Programmable Web, John Musser, gave a really interesting presentation called 20 API Business Models in 20 Minutes. And to this day, it's been like the gold standard that everybody refers to on what are all the business models for APIs. And we thought, wow, here we are 7 years later. It's probably a good time to refresh what all the API business models are. And so this is a white paper that goes into extraordinary detail about every API business model that we've observed in the API economy, how those business models work, and even some business models that we didn't observe, but we think are probably hiding out there somewhere.
And is that available on Programmable Web?
It is available on Programmable Web, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Search business models on Programmable Web.
DP had a question about what language you're learning with Duolingo. I was learning Spanish along with my daughters. I was doing it on Duolingo because they were taking it in high school and junior high. And they said my accent was just terrible, so I stopped after about a year of trying to get through it. What do you think, David?
Yeah. So my wife is Dutch.
Oh,
let's see.
And I've had a couple, what I would say is false starts at becoming fluent in Dutch. And so, I decided to give Duolingo a try to see if I could finally get over the blockers that were keeping me from being fluent. And I have to say, it's a cool app. If you haven't used it, it's a cool application. They gamify it. As you can see, in my league, which is the Amethyst League,
Yep.
I'm in third place. They've gamified this thing, and
I was hoping the gamification, like
there's a looks like, I don't know, there's like a couple days left, 3 days or something like that left in this round, and my objective is to stay in the top. If you're in the top 10, you move up to the next league, but if you're in the top 3, you get something special. And so I'm battling there. I'm hanging on to third place. Whoops. It's cool. That it does motivate me to really use the thing every day, because I don't want to lose my spot. I want to be in the top 3. So they've done a good job keeping me engaged.
It's interesting, David. I in doing the Spanish one, I made it to the Diamond League, which is the top league, and then I realized at the point that I made it to the Diamond League, I realized in that league there are folks that you get paired up with who have figured out how to cheat the system, and that is just no fun. You pull up your app, and you're looking at where you are, and the week starts on whatever day, Sunday or Monday. Yeah. You look, as soon as the thing starts, about an hour into it, they've got 50,000 points, and you're like, there's no way. And they're just,
I don't know. Something. Yeah, I don't know how they do it.
Anyway, but it's brilliant that they put the gamification aspect in there, because there's some of us, and my wife gives me a hard time about this, but my watch, I've got an Apple Watch, and I've been walking a lot more in this pandemic, and we've been kind of doing the neighborhood circuit, and I want to get that badge. There's a little workout badge that you get, and it's the stupidest thing, right? It's just this little icon you can swipe and spin, and
a little achievement.
And it's just an achievement, right? It just says, hey, you walked 100, 10 miles this week, or whatever your thing is, right? So, there's some of us that are more susceptible. I don't know what the word is, but that does nothing for my wife. She goes, I get like a little digit thing, a little byte of of a graphic, not doing it for me. So,
and by the way, all of this stuff we're talking about, it's all working over APIs.
100%
APIs. There's pretty much nothing that's working in a mobile environment that's not crossing through an API that an API hasn't enabled. And that's one of the things that's interesting to me is you may have noticed that I would say in the last 6 months, Apple announced that their watch can now tell you if you have some sort of arrhythmia with your heart, potentially having arrhythmia with your heart. And I happen to be a person who suffers from chronic heart arrhythmia. And earlier this year, I got a little sicker than I usually am from it. And the way, and I didn't know what was going on. I just knew I wasn't feeling well. And I have a Garmin watch. Swimming's the thing I do. And I woke up one morning, my watch told me that my heart rate was a 38. And I was like, Lance Armstrong probably has a 38 heart rate, but I don't. I can tell you that. I'm not a Lance Armstrong. And so I called my cardiologist, and I said, hey, my watch is telling me I have a 38 heart rate. He goes, all right, come on in. It turned out that my heart was had gone into one of its things. It's already corrected and everything's fine. But what dawned on me was there's just APIs working here. And what Apple has figured out is all they have to do is put some additional software on top of the API to spot the arrhythmia and then warn the person who's wearing the watch, hey, potentially there's something going on with your heart. And it made me think about how Garmin could have done the same thing, but hasn't. Like, at the end of the day, they're getting the same information, the same data off of my wrist that Apple is.
Yeah.
It's the same information. Like, they can see my heart rate. They can see that 1 minute it's a 38, and the next minute it's a 45, and the next minute it's a 62, and it's going all over the place, and say, hey, this guy's in trouble, right? But they haven't done that. But that's what APIs do, right? When you have APIs in the device like that, that they enable innovative people. There's probably somebody who's just missing the idea at Garmin. They enable the people to write the software that runs on this platform to give you that information at the moment that you need it. And it literally has me thinking about, I'm an Android user, as you probably saw. This is not an iPhone. It literally has me thinking about switching platforms to Apple after all these years because of that one little thing. And it's just about APIs.
Makes sense. Makes sense, David. That's great. Anybody have any questions for David? Open this up real quick. All right, I'm going to ask one favor of you guys, one more thing, and actually, I'll take that back. I'm going to ask two things. The first is I'd love to get a screenshot. We usually, when we meet at the local pub or whatever, when we're doing this in person, we've got everybody, and then we get the selfie. So I'd love to get a selfie picture with everyone on the screen. So if you've got a video camera, go ahead and turn it on. We've got 3 or 4 of us on, and I'll just take a screenshot, and we're going to post that for the Houston Meetup website. I'll give everybody just a couple of minutes to get their video on. You should be able to just go down to the bottom and see a video. You should have like a little icon that says start video. And I think I made everybody a presenter. Luckily, I say luckily, I would have loved to have had set 100 of you guys, but I only had 15 people to turn that on for. So if you are, Joyce, I'm turning your presenter mode on. So if you've got it on, looks like this may be all we get. You have 5 more seconds. All right, and then we'll get a cheese from everybody or a smile. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, guys, that's perfect. That's a great shot.
Awesome.
Oh, wait, one more time. Sorry, my screen capture did not work. One more time there, Adrian. Thank you. All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Now I've got it. All right, got some camera shy people, I think, but that's all right. I'm glad you joined us. Okay.
And they might not be camera shy. They might,
Oh, yeah.
like I'm wearing slippers right now. Who knows what people are wearing? Right?
Okay. The second thing, let me do a little trivia. I know we're supposed to do this kind of spread throughout this thing, but let's just do this trivia real quick like this. All right. In the chat room. So everybody go over to that little chat area. And then I will ask a question, and the first answer is the winner. Okay? All right, so going back to Mike's presentation. what are 2 of the 3 changes to Studio 7.7? That,
Oh man, I couldn't taste that.
you were waiting on that. Come on. All right, so he's got it right. Write data weave faster. Oh, okay. Create API spec.
I'll bet you he cheats on Duolingo too.
Connect. Are you on the Duolingo cheater?
I was taking the note, miss, you know. I think,
Okay.
meanwhile, I also downloaded 7.7, by the way. So I think I really like that data weave feature, what Mike explained.
No, it is. It's great. I've been using Data Weave Playground for the longest. I have that. I have a container for that, a Docker container, and that's the one I use all the time. So, okay, so we've got Data Weave, we've got the Connect to Gov Cloud, we've got Create API Spec from Studio, which is a really cool little piece there. So, all right, second question. David used or showed us a number of metaphors and for describing APIs, and showed us some pictures of those. All right, what are the 4 metaphors? I kept it 4. What are the 4 metaphors that David used when describing APIs in the presentation? I need all 4 answers. So if you don't, you're giving somebody else the answers. So yeah, DP. Come on, guys. You know this one.
Wow. I must not be very good at this.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. Give everybody a hint. You plug things into these.
There we go.
Shredder.
Right.
Lego, ship builder. Oh, I know. Okay, you're close on the ship builder and sockets. So wall sockets, yes. Shipping twist fork, not quite. Plugs, shipping containers, Legos, and tiny houses.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Matt Daly. Matt Daly has. That was really close. Ship builder, just I couldn't get to the container part from that. But that did a great job. Okay, good.
The twist fork it was a twist lock.
And it was Twistlock. That's right. So real close. Matt, great job. Voucher coming your way for that. And then let's see. All right, guys. Good. Don't start answering right away. Let me get the question out. Okay, the question.
They're answering before you're asking the question.
They take notes, David, and then they just paste it in there. So
you've got some clairvoyant people on this meetup, really.
Hey, we're Houstonians, David. We're pretty quick down here, you know.
I can tell. Yeah.
Accent fool you. Okay, there were 5 different aspects of APIs that David talked about that the boxable houses exhibit. Name 3.
Ooh.
Go. See what we come up with. Easy, secure, and modular. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
right.
And I did combine modular and reusable. But yeah, that's you've got it, Adrian. Great job. Easy, secure, and modular. What were some of the others? Anybody got some of the other ones? Drew Hill, I see you've got security standard and standard. Okay, so standard is sort of
yeah.
You could
standard over the standard network.
right? Yep.
Standards.
So the other ones, so the full list: agility, yep, cost, modularity and reusability. Good, Shweta, you've got the cost in there. That's great. Modularity and reusability, inherently secure and easier than IKEA. So basically, citizen integrator. Awesome job. Okay. The last thing that I'm going to ask you guys to do, I have another Menti page, 3628. It's one question, 851. All right, so this is the code. And what I would like, if you don't mind, this has been a great evening. I hope you guys have gotten as much out of it as I have. This is, I've really enjoyed the topic tonight. What topics do you want to see in the future? Okay. Prasanna. Okay. I'm not sure what Prasanna is. VPC. Okay. So virtual private cloud, or okay, runtime fabric. Great. It's a good topic. RTF, okay, runtime fabric, yeah, great. Srinivasa says C4E, oh, that's a good one, Center for Excellence. Or enablement, actually, I think that's the C4E, as MuleSoft described it in Catalyst, is the Center for Enablement, right? ELB. Okay. All right. So those are great. Those are great. All right. I will. What else? We got another one added here. VPN. Okay. Virtual private network. So we've got VPN. That kind of goes hand in hand with VPC. Okay. Good. Thank you guys for this. This will government cloud. Okay. Yeah, so we'll take a look at some of these, and you know what I will probably do. I'd like to send out via the Meetup email distribution list just an ask for all of you guys that are on there. Hey, if you've got something that you want to that you want to present, would love to hear from you. Would love for you to be on here and you know doing a presentation. You guys have seen my presentations before, and so the bar is not high. You know, you can come in and you can nail it. So I'd love to see what some of you guys are thinking, and certainly next quarter, once the hackathon is over, I'd love to I'd love to have one of you guys show what it was that you built for the you know, for the hackathon. I think there were 2 of you guys that said that you were going to participate in that, and maybe a few others that were uncertain. Maybe this is the first time you've heard of it. So once again, David, thank you so much. I know it's getting late there. It's about 9 o'clock on the East Coast. And I know we've all got more election coverage that we are dying to get back to and watch. So I will close this up. Thank you so much for joining tonight and making it a good show. And I look forward to seeing everybody back for the next Houston meetup. Thanks.
All right.
Good job, Jim.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good job, David.
Thank you.